Your host instructor is David Dorian Ross. Mr. Ross is the founder and CEO of Taiji Fit and the creator of the Taiji Fit Mind-Body Exercise Program. He has a BA in Human Movement Studies from San Francisco State University and has trained in China with championship martial arts coaches. Mr. Ross's competitive performances in Tai Chi have won him 7 U.S. gold medals, 2 world bronze medals, and a world silver medal. He hosted the PBS series Tai Chi, Health and Happiness, and is the author of 5 books on health and wellness, including Exercising the Soul.
Nice. Good. One more. Good one. There we go. Good. That's a round kick right into the bag there. My friend Kathy Long is giving me a good example of a round kick. Round kicks are one of those martial arts techniques that people think about whenever they imagine martial arts. They've seen it in movies. They've seen it as they pass by the window of the dojo. It is, however, I'd say like an intermediate kick, an intermediate technique?
Yeah, intermediate.
So a simpler technique, a more beginner type of technique would be a front kick, perhaps.
Sure.
All right. Why don't you lead us through a front kick drill?
Okay.
Okay. Now, this is something that you can join in with us if you're sitting in your chair watching this program. Why don't you get up right now? Just clear a little space, move the coffee table aside, make sure there's nothing breakable in your immediate area. But we're going to take this from the very beginning, and it's something simple that you can join in with. Where do we start?
Well, there's 3 different stances I can introduce for a front kick. Well, 4 actually, but we'll stick to 3.
Stick to 3.
We'll keep it simple. First off, the neutral position. Standing here, perfectly neutral. It doesn't look like you know anything. You've got the element of surprise if you decide to attack somebody. Otherwise, there's the lead leg front kick. I'm sorry, you're in your fight stance. You can either kick with the lead leg or the rear leg. So in this case, if you're in a neutral stance, you want to take let's say your left foot in this case, you're going to place it, you turn it sideways. And as that foot comes up, you're going to transfer your weight, but keep that knee slightly bent because that, again, maintains your balance. So as you practice that, turn the foot, bend that knee slightly, lift the knee up, and be able to stand here. You should have the balance to stand here all day. Maybe not the strength, but the balance certainly.
If you don't have the balance, you could actually practice this with a chair or a friend, somebody nearby.
Wall, yes.
Wall, exactly.
Absolutely. But it's best if you can do it without that, without any of that. Okay, so again, place the foot sideways, shift your weight onto your base leg, bend your knee slightly and lift that knee up. Shoot the foot out, hitting with the ball of the foot, bring it back in, and then back to neutral. Okay? So again, turn that foot sideways. That's your base. That's your foundation. Without a strong foundation, you won't have anything. Bend that knee slightly. Bring the knee up. Okay? Shoot that foot out, hitting with the ball of the foot. Back in, back to neutral. Okay? Practice the other side. Shift your weight to your right or your left, depending. Bring that knee up. Shoot the foot out. Back in.
That happens to me all the time.
I hate that. Turn your foot out. Bend that knee. Shoot the foot out. Back in and down. Now, from a fight stance, doesn't matter which foot you have forward. So the rear leg, I want you to take your front foot, turn it out. Your front foot turns out in the direction. If it's my left, it turns to the left. I'm going to kick with that right leg and then bring it back when I'm done. So you turn, you bring that knee up, you shoot the fall of the foot, bring it back, set it down. Okay? From the front leg, you're going to plant that back foot, bring that knee up, kick, and set it down. Okay? Again, plant that back foot, bring the knee up, set it down. Okay?
One more?
Yep, one more.
Okay.
Plant that back foot, bring the knee up, shoot with the ball of the foot, bring it in, set it down. Okay?
Great. And of course, we can do this with either foot, practicing on both sides. So there's the front kick. Kicks are one of those things that everybody thinks of when they think of martial arts. Kicking is part of a furious exchange of battle techniques. But in this section, we're going to look at a lot more different kinds of actions, a lot more different kinds of weapons, hands and feet and kicks and punches. All that's coming up in this introduction to the martial arts, mind and body. Martial arts. The phrase specifically suggests that these are the skills of combat, raised to the level of an art. Combat, fighting hand-to-hand with weapons against a single opponent or against many, fighting on an equal level or fighting against opponents much better armed and armored. And for the most part, this is how Westerners, and Americans in particular, think of the martial arts. This image is reinforced by our popular culture, by comic books and anime and action movies and television. From David Carradine's character Kwai Chang Caine in the TV show Kung Fu, which was my first introduction to the martial arts, to David Carradine's character Bill in the Quentin Tarantino movies Kill Bill 1 and 2, the martial arts have been portrayed as both the epitome of violence and the final answer that ends violence. But in point of fact, throughout history, the martial arts have really been much more than systems and styles of fighting. They've also, and I think more so, been systems and styles of personal growth, developing the mind and the character along with the body. They are systems of philosophy that are active rather than academic and demonstrable rather than just rhetorical. Because for the masters of the martial arts, there's a real distinction between being a fighter and being a martial artist. Even if you're undefeated by any opponent, if you do not defeat your own ego and tame your baser impulses, then you are just a brawler. As we shall discover for ourselves in this series, almost every martial art, spanning different countries of origin, different births and different times in history, every martial art is as much a discipline for the mind and the spirit as it is for the body. This program's an introduction to 9 of the most popular martial arts in the world. One by one, we'll cover the basic descriptions and history, unique characteristics of each martial arts style. In addition to the physical techniques, we'll also immerse ourselves in the philosophy and sometimes spiritual and mental training that's inherent in each martial art. But more than that, you'll get a chance to learn from a renowned master in each style. I've invited the most accomplished martial artists in America to join us as ambassadors of their respective martial arts style. Coach Kathy Long, 5-time world women's kickboxing champion, master in Kung Fu Sansu, world-class coach in Muay Thai kickboxing, nicknamed the Queen of Mean, the Princess of Pain, the Punisher. Sensei Akira Fukuda, 6th Dan black belt in Shito-Ryu Karate, black belt in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, 3rd degree black belt in Kodokan Judo, and the head coach of the USA Olympic Karate team. Dr. Tammy McCracken, certified instructor in Krav Maga, one of only 3 women in the U.S. to hold expert ranking, coordinator of the women's division of Krav Maga Global, and consultant to law enforcement and public safety organizations worldwide. Sifu Helena Koloff, 4th Dan black belt in Junfan Jeet Kune Do, 3rd Dan black belt in Kenpo Karate, silver gloves instructor in French Savate, and co-creator of Escape to Safety Women's Self-Defense. Coach Johnny Chang, disciple of Master Jiang Jwing-Ming, senior student at the YMAA Retreat Center, seminar leader, and coach. Grand Master Dave Wheaton, 9th Dan black belt in Hapkido, 7th Dan black belt in Taekwondo, Golden Lifetime Achievement Award by the World Karate Union Martial Arts Hall of Fame. And of course, me, David Dorian Ross, your host, 8-time U.S. National Gold Medalist, 3-time U.S. Wushu team member, U.S. Tai Chi team member, World Silver Medalist, 2-time World Bronze Medalist, and World Record holder in competitive Tai Chi performance competition. Every martial arts style is different. In fact, that's what makes it so much fun to study the different styles, to see the different nuances, the different interpretations of fighting skills, etc. But there are things that are kind of common to all martial arts styles. I mean, after all, a punch is basically a punch no matter what style you're in. A kick is a kick. Although we will see the nuances and the details and the slight differences between the different styles. But let's start with some things that are common to all martial arts styles. There are particular stances, particular formations of the hands, particular body positions that if you learn these in advance, you'll be well prepared for the martial arts to come. It'll be something that'll be familiar to you already, even when you start to say, oh, that's a little bit different from this martial arts style to this martial arts style. So we can break these commonalities into some basic categories. There are techniques of the hands, maybe techniques of the elbows and the shoulders even. There are techniques of the kicks. There's also what we might call footwork techniques, stances that you'll be putting your body in to give yourself stability, from which you can launch an attack, or sometimes just thought of as training methods. So for example, one of the most basic positions that you'll find in all martial arts styles, or maybe it'd be more accurate to say in many martial arts styles, is what we might generally refer to as a lunge position. So let's just start out with that. Left foot comes in front, and if you haven't already done so, let me get you up out of your chair so that you can join us. Standing facing us, just do what you see. Don't really worry about right and left. That's more for these guys here. So I'm going to take this foot forward so that I have a nice long reach with my back foot. The front knee is bent. The back leg is fairly straight. Now, here's the difference in some martial arts styles will actually tell you that they want more extension, more straightness in the back leg. Other martial arts styles will actually go the opposite direction and ask you for some softness in the back leg and knee. In this case, I'm just being very generic. So we're going to place the leg almost but not quite straight. The weight is distributed about 60% over the front foot, about 40% over the back foot. And this is a basic lunge position. Now be careful, because if you're used to doing lunges in the gym, if you're doing an exercise lunge or a fitness lunge, you might find yourself with the back heel off of the ground, or you might find your knee coming far forward if you don't have a good trainer to train you out of that. In this particular lunge, what I want is both feet firmly on the ground, right? Front toes pointing forward. Back toes turning in about 45 degrees. So I'm just going to make a little correction here on Courtney because her foot is turned out more than I want to see it. So I'm just going to turn that back foot in a little bit, bend that front knee, and sit down a little bit. So yeah, commit to that front foot a little bit more. Beautiful. Kat's got this perfectly. You can test yourself on this by shifting your weight forward and back a little bit, finding yourself in a nice, strong position. Now, here's another thing that I want you to do is look down at your feet and ask yourself if your feet are on the same line. If they're on the same line, like you're standing on a tightrope, then you're in a yoga lunge. In most martial arts lunge, like my Tai Chi lunge, like a lunge in karate, which is called Zenkutsudachi, you're not standing on a straight line. You're actually standing what I like to call railroad tracks. So one foot on one rail, one foot on another rail. So there's some distance between your 2 feet here. So Kat, I might even put you out a little bit farther. There you go. So this theoretically gives you more stability, more strength in your stance, less likelihood to be pushed over from this position. Some martial arts styles will say this is a fighting position. Other martial artist styles will say this is a training position. But you'll find it very commonly in all martial arts styles. Let's switch feet. Let's take the other foot forward. Again, don't worry about left and right. Just do what you see here. I've got one foot in front. There's a space between the 2 feet. My back foot is turned in 45 degrees. My front toes are pointing forward. And now, take a nice deep breath. Sink down. Just get solid. Like a heavy weight just went down through the legs, into the feet, into the floor. This is your lunge position. In Chinese martial arts, we actually give this a special name. We call this a bow and arrow step. In Chinese, it's called gongbu. So my front leg is bent, the rounded shape of the arrow, or of the bow, and the back leg is fairly straight, like the string that's being pulled taut. Right? Good. So that's our first basic footwork position. We'll find this over and over again in many different martial arts. A second basic position is called the horse riding stance. And the horse riding stance is a wide straddle position where you're sitting down as though riding a horse. Now, I'm going to get a little bit more specific about the exact spacing out of this. So come on up together and stand with your feet together, toes pointing forward. All right, heels are together in this position. And I'm going to show you a quick and easy way to get double shoulder width out of your feet. With the weight in your heels, I'm going to have you pivot your toes outward 45 degrees. Not too much over rotation, just 45 degrees is all. Then pivoting on your toes, turn those heels out 45 degrees. Right? Pivoting on the heels again, turn the toes out once more, 45 degrees. And then pivoting on the toes, turn the heels straight. And you have approximately double shoulder width. Now, sit down like you're sitting in a chair. It's okay to stick your butt out behind you just a little bit here so that you don't wind up. Here's what happens here. Can I just get you to turn sideways in this? A very common mistake in sitting down in a horse riding stance is feeling like your back is straight when in fact what happens is you wind up leaning backwards a little bit. It's just a misperception of your inner ear telling you that your back is straight when in fact you're leaning backwards like this. If in fact you pull your hips in, which makes your rear end go out a little bit more, your back gets nice and straight just like that and you're very stable in this position. So, once again, if you want to do this from the very beginning, feet together, pivoting on the heels, turn the toes out 45, pivoting on the toes, turn the heels out 45, pivoting on the heels, the toes go out 45 once more, and finally, heels go straight, right? Feet are straight forward. If you sit down from here into your horse riding position and your feet feel like they want to turn out a little bit, don't fight it, especially when you're first learning this. Because it puts a little bit of a torsion in the knee here. And above all training should be done with safety first in mind. Because if you keep yourself safe, you'll be able to come back tomorrow and train again. If you break yourself in your first lesson, that's a real downer. So if you feel like those toes want to turn out, let them do that for today. Sit down, let your hips go behind you. The back feels nice and straight. And this is the horse riding stance. In Chinese, we call this ma bu. Ma meaning the horse, sitting on the horse stance. Right? All right, so, Kat's already tired coming out of that stance there. This is a very classic kind of trick. Oh, come back there. Don't, fear not. Or maybe you should be afraid. I'm not sure. See, I got to pick on Courtney last time. By the way, let's get you to stay in that stance for just a moment longer. All right? Give yourself enough time to check everything. It's not the position that's the most important. It's the feeling behind the position. So, are you getting tired? Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. I know. I planned it that way. All right, very nice. Okay, and relax and rise up. Yeah, shake that out a little bit here. Each time you come into the training center and you start practicing, by the way, you feel a little bit warmer now for having done some of these stances?
Not yet.
Not yet? I'll have to work on her a little bit more. Feeling a bit, yes, got warm. This is part of the warm-ups that you prepare for before you go into some of the more dynamic training, before you start throwing kicks and punches. You'll want to do things to prepare your body to do the work later. Stance work is one of those things that are classically part of the warm-ups of a martial arts training session. It's important to remember this, that getting your body loose for those kicks and punches is also important, but be warned not to do too much deep stretching. Deep stretching should come later. We'll talk about this more as we go on in this program. But in the beginning, some light stretches, some stance work like this, getting the hips open like that may be all that you need to prepare for. The deeper, more dynamic stretches will come at the end of the workout, not at the beginning. All right, there's one more foot position that I want to cover, which is, again, common to all different martial arts styles. And this is what we might call a fighting position. So we're going to do what we might call a generic boxer's stance here, starting with, this is my left foot, their left foot forward. Don't worry about left or right. Just do what you see. I have one foot in front, the other foot in back. Both knees are bent, so I have some spring in my step. We're going to add in the fighting position with the hands later. Right now, it's just about the footwork here. I don't have too long a step. It's not a full-on bow step. It's not a full-on lunge. It's not side-by-side in the horse riding stance either. It's a stance which allows me to advance. It's your cue to advance. One more time, advance. Or retreat. I'm not squared entirely up here. I'm a little bit open. We'll practice more of this as we go along. But this is the basics. This is some of the basic stance work that's going to be found in all martial arts styles. And I've got more in just a moment. As we go through some of these basic techniques that are common to all different martial arts styles, we were just talking about being warmed up, getting more ready for the workout. And I was going to ask each one of my companions here, Courtney on this side and Kathy on this side. Every martial artist, every athlete has their own favorite warm-up. Do you have one that you really like to do every time you come in and work out?
Yeah, but it's a series of different movements. But yes, there's several things. Just to loosen up, not stretch.
Just to loosen up, not stretch. Okay, how about you? Do you have a favorite one thing or that you do or similar to Kathy?
Yeah, I do. Just maybe some light shadow boxing just to get the muscles moving.
You notice that both of these martial artists have a very similar kind of answer. Some light shadow boxing, a series of movements just to kind of get loosened up. In fact, if you're thinking, okay, what should be the kind of warm-up I do to prepare for my martial arts class, the best warm-up is always movements that are done slower or softer or more easy that are like the movements you're going to be doing later in a more dynamic and forceful fashion. So if I'm planning on throwing a bunch of punches fast and hard against a bag or against a sparring partner, to warm up, to loosen up with it, I might do some shadow boxing. I might do something nice and easy. That is one of the best ways to warm up, and it will get you warmer, I promise. Speaking of punching with a partner, punching is one of the things that you'll be doing in almost every martial arts style that we encounter. So I thought it might be really good to start off with learning how to make a really good punch. Begin by opening your palm. We'll just take this. This is a technique I learned from my first karate teacher. Now curl the fingers of that hand very tightly to the very top of your palm. Roll those down into your palm so that ideally you make little indentations with your fingernails right into the palm. Then bring the thumb over the top of those and lock those fingers right into the palm of your hand. I'm going to pause right here and bring in something we have very special called an action cam to get real in close so you can see exactly how this works. So here's the breakdown of making a classic martial arts fist. Start out with an open palm, extending the fingers way up tall. Then take those fingers and curl them tightly down to the very top of the palm. Curl them once again, rolling them over so that, as my first karate teacher said, you make indentations with your fingernails against the palm of your hand. Finally, take that thumb and roll it over to squeeze the fingers into the palm, and that makes a classic fist. Now, let's take a look at this thumb. It doesn't go over the top like this. It doesn't ever go on the inside of the fingers like this, and it doesn't dangle out freely. It always goes across the knuckles to squeeze those into the fist like this. Bear in mind that different martial arts styles will have different interpretations of this fist, so this is just a generic one, and you'll use this fist differently depending upon the martial application. When you use this fist, if you were hitting somebody, let's imagine you even had gloves on and hitting another object, we always say that you want to put your body behind the punch, which means your whole body weight is behind this fist. You know what that feels like? Well, let's do a little exercise to talk about this. One of the things that many martial arts schools, not every style, but a lot of schools do, is teach people how to do knuckle push-ups. Now, don't be afraid. I'm going to lead us into this nice and easy. So let's come down to the mat, come down to your floor, take it easy, and start out on the knees. Do knee push-ups with open palms. Right? So just come forward. Let those feet be off the floor, and let's just do one push-up down, just to kind of end back up again. By the way, if your push-up is all the way down and then back up, that's just fine with me. Now, let's take one fist. All right, so forming the fist as we had done before. The other palm still open, one fist on the floor. Now, let's pause for a moment because there's an aspect of this that I really want to bring out. When you punch, what part of the fist is actually impacting? What part of the fist beats the target? Because it's in fact not the whole fist all the way across the knuckles. It's considered to be the first two knuckles right here, the index finger and the middle finger knuckle right there. So as you lay this fist down on the floor, you can practice making that the focal point of where you're bearing weight, because that's where you want to put that punch into. In addition, the fist is not actually held straight. A straight fist like this has the tendency to bend back this way. There's a natural articulation of the wrist here that would just go back in this way. So the punch is slightly, tiny bit, angled downward to create some stability through the wrist action into the forearm. All right, so we have one open palm, one fist on those two knuckles, a little bit of a bend forward in that. Still stay on the knees. Let's take one down and one up. All the way down, all the way back up. Easy peasy. Let's try the other hand. There's one knuckle, one open palm, all the way down, all the way back up. Very nice. If you feel like it, we'll go to two fists on the knees. Take it down, take it back up. Now, do you feel the pressure in the fist there a little bit more each time?
Oh, yeah.
So this is one way of getting into it. By no means is this a prerequisite to doing martial arts. In fact, there are many schools that never do this. But I thought this is an interesting way of experience what it means to say, put your body behind the punch. So that's our first technique. Punching, of course, is not the only thing that is common to all martial arts styles. There's also kicking. And in the beginning of this lesson, I talked about the round kick being a more of an intermediate technique than the front kick. So I'm going to enlist my friend Kathy here to help us talk our way through what is the training method for the round kick. So let's start off. I'll just kind of get us started here. The round kick is an angular, a rotational kick that comes from the side and across. Now again, lots of different martial arts styles will interpret this in their own nuanced way, and there's different angles of the kick, both up, side, and down. But in a generic sense, you want to be able to lift this knee up, angle the leg, and extend this leg out into a kick. It's difficult, slow, but maybe Kathy's going to help us to do this in a way that will help train this technique. So you were telling me earlier about using a chair?
Yes, to help you get the knee up and across properly.
So I've got something that's maybe going to help us out here.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to let you take us through the drill, through the exercise.
So to ensure that your knee gets up and over high enough, it's important that you don't want your knee down while you're kicking in a roundhouse kick. Okay? You want your knee at least level with your foot. Of course, depending if you're going high, it all changes. But for mid to low kicks, you want to make sure that that knee comes up and goes across. So to start with that, it comes up and it goes across, and I go down here like this. So this way I know that my knee is high enough as long as it's going across that table, from one side of the table to the other side of the table. As I come around, I want to rotate on the ball of my foot. Now, weapon configuration, you can say I can use my entire shin. Some people like to hit with their instep, or you can hit with the ball of the foot. Hitting with the ball of the foot is a precision targeting tool. You want to make sure that what you're hitting, it's very precise and it's dead on. So in that case, if you're using that as a precision tool, you can't miss. Otherwise, you have this big baseball bat right here that you can swing and hit with, which is also good.
Which is also good. So we'll find different martial arts styles. For example, Taekwondo, which emphasizes the round kick, really loves to throw the round kicks, and we'll practice that in a lot of ways. There's one more aspect of this round kick, and by the way, that was brilliant. Thank you so much. One more aspect of this that Kathy just touched on that I want to emphasize, and that is the pivot of this front foot or the base foot. So as Kathy brings this knee up here, it's not just sort of brought up and this one's just standing there doing nothing. It's actively pivoting. So I'm just going to get up on the toes and do the twist here for a second, right? Feeling the action of the pivot.
Great way to practice it.
Right? So that pivot then, that twist is going to happen on this front foot specifically. So I'm going to come up on the front foot and twist. You guys could join me. Come up on that front foot and
twist.
Twist. Very nice. Now, how far to twist? So if my target's in front of me, if I'm in front of you, if I'm your target, you want to twist so much that this front foot turns almost all the way away from you, maybe 45 degrees facing the other direction. One more time, just to wrap this up. Come up on the front foot and twist all the way around. And then you'll be in a good position to unleash that baseball bat, as Kathy pointed out. So there we have it. There we have a variety of different generic techniques that you're going to probably see in most of the martial arts that we study. We have stances, we have punches, we have kicks, especially the round kick. But it all is going to come together in each different flavor, like different flavors of ice cream. So one of the things that we need to talk about as we introduce different martial arts styles is the aspect of mental training. There's an aspect in every different martial arts style that affects the mind. And for every one that we're going to talk about, focus, concentration, commitment, perseverance are aspects of this mental training. So here's an exercise that you could actually do with me. If you haven't already done so, you could get up out of your chair and sit down into the horse riding stance that we've already practiced. And just stay with me. You can put your hands on your hips if you like. You can just put your hands out here in a focused position if you like. Either one is fine. And think about the fact that in order to be able to accomplish all of the rigorous training that you're going to go into in martial arts, you have to have a strong will. You have to be able to get up in the morning and say, I'm so sore. There's all the reason in the world not to go back to training, and still go back to training. This is an aspect that carries over into the rest of life, because there are days that it's going to be, there's all the reason in the world not to go back to work, or not to respond to a harsh word with a kind word. And yet you do so anyway because you have the mental perseverance, you have the mental willpower. Now, if your legs are getting tired already, that's a good thing. This is an example of what it means to be disciplined. This is an example of what you learn in the mental training of martial arts. Relax, relax. Martial arts makes you strong. Martial arts makes you dangerous. Martial arts gives you lots of skills with which you can actually hurt other human beings. So part of the martial arts, traditionally, is to improve the character of the individual that is training. With great power, you might have heard, comes great responsibility. So it's important that when we train other people to learn these techniques of attack and defense, that we don't just turn out bullies, we don't just turn out street brawlers, we turn out people of good character, of good spirit. Every different exercise that we do in the martial arts actually takes us step by step in this direction, training us not only in the physical discipline, but in the mental discipline, in the spiritual discipline, in the character of being a good and kind and generous person. Now, this may not be where you start out. You may not have ever considered this kind of character before you start taking the martial arts. But we say that on the other side of this training is a different kind of life. To get what you've never had in life, you have to do what you've never done before. But to do what you've never done before, you have to become the person that you've never been before. And that's the purpose of martial arts training.